She doesn't remember the man who told her she was beautiful. She remembers the man who made her feel understood. That's the difference almost every man misses. Most compliments sound the same because they're focused on what a woman already hears every day. You're gorgeous. You're hot. You're so pretty. Nice words, but forgettable. The compliments that stay in her mind don't chase her attention. They touch something deeper. They make her feel seen instead of judged, appreciated instead of pursued. And here's the twist. The right compliment isn't about convincing a woman to like you. It's about creating an emotional moment she naturally associates with you. That's what attraction psychology has been showing us for years. People remember how you make them feel far longer than the exact words you say. So why do some compliments instantly create warmth, curiosity, and connection, while others quietly push attraction away? By the end of this, you'll understand the difference, and once you do, you'll never compliment a woman the same way again. If you've ever walked away from a conversation wondering, did I say the wrong thing? This is for you. Maybe you've been respectful. Maybe you've been confident. Maybe you've even received a smile back. Yet somehow the connection never seemed to grow. That's frustrating because it makes you believe attraction is something you're either born with or without. It isn't. What many men misunderstand is that attraction isn't created by impressive lines. It's created by meaningful emotional experiences. A compliment can become one of those experiences, but only when it communicates something deeper than appearance. Women receive appearance-based compliments far more often than most men realize. That doesn't automatically make those compliments bad, but when every interaction begins and ends with looks, your words blend into the background. People crave something different. They want to feel recognized for qualities that most others overlook. That's where psychology becomes interesting. Researchers who study relationships often find that people develop stronger emotional bonds when they feel genuinely understood, valued, and accepted, not simply admired. That means your compliment isn't just describing someone, it's revealing what you notice, and what you notice says as much about you as it does about her. Think about that for a second. Two different men could both say something positive. One says, "You're beautiful." The other says, "I noticed how patient you were with that waiter, even though the restaurant was busy." That says a lot about your character. Which one feels more personal? Which one feels like it came from someone who was actually paying attention? Exactly. The difference isn't vocabulary, it's observation. Throughout this conversation, you'll discover 8 compliments that naturally encourage emotional connection because they're rooted in authentic appreciation rather than performance. You'll also discover why one compliment, something almost nobody thinks about, often creates more lasting attraction than compliments about beauty ever could. And later, I'll explain the biggest mistake confident men accidentally make after giving a compliment, a mistake that quietly destroys the emotional impact they just created. These aren't tricks. They're not magic phrases. No sentence guarantees attraction because every person is different and relationships are built on mutual interest, compatibility, and respect. But learning how to express genuine appreciation in a thoughtful way can make conversations feel more meaningful for both of you. The goal isn't manipulation. The goal is connection. When you stop trying to impress and start trying to understand, something changes. Your conversations become calmer. Women feel less like they're being evaluated. You feel less pressure to perform. Ironically, that's often when authentic chemistry has room to grow, because confidence isn't speaking the loudest. Confidence is paying attention. And once you understand what emotionally intelligent compliments actually communicate beneath the surface, you'll start seeing conversations through an entirely different lens. Let's begin with the first compliment, the one that immediately separates genuine interest from ordinary flattery. Here's the hidden truth that changes almost everything. Most men think compliments are supposed to create attraction. They're not. Compliments reveal your attention, and attention is what people remember. When a woman feels that you genuinely notice something meaningful about her, not because you're trying to win points, but because you're naturally observant, your words carry more weight. That's why 2 men can say something positive yet receive completely different reactions. One sounds rehearsed, the other sounds real. The difference isn't confidence alone. It's authenticity. Psychologists often talk about the importance of feeling seen. In healthy relationships, people develop trust when they believe someone understands who they are beneath the surface. That's why compliments focused on values, effort, or personality often feel more memorable than compliments focused only on appearance. Let's look at the first compliment. Compliment number 1. I like how thoughtful you are. Simple, honest, powerful. Why? Because thoughtfulness is rarely recognized directly. When someone consistently notices little details, remembers conversations, or checks on people they care about, they're investing emotional energy. Acknowledging that effort communicates something important. You noticed what others overlooked, but here's the mistake. Don't say it randomly. Say it after you've actually witnessed that behavior. Specificity creates credibility. General statements sound borrowed. Specific observations sound earned. Compliment number 2. You make people feel comfortable. This reaches something deeper than appearance. Many women care about how they affect the people around them. When you recognize emotional presence instead of physical appearance, you're complimenting an influence rather than a feature. That often feels far more meaningful. Notice something else. This compliment isn't about you. You're not saying, "You make me happy." You're recognizing something about who she is with everyone. That feels genuine. Now here's where many men accidentally sabotage themselves. They give a compliment and then immediately wait for validation. They stare. They expect a reaction. They become nervous if she simply smiles and changes the subject. Why? Because they weren't giving a compliment. They were making a transaction. Real confidence doesn't demand an immediate reward. It gives sincere appreciation and allows the conversation to continue naturally. That emotional freedom is attractive because it communicates security. Compliment number 3. I admire how passionate you are about that. Watch what happens when someone talks about something they genuinely enjoy. Their voice changes. Their eyes become brighter. Their body language becomes more expressive. Complimenting that passion tells them you appreciate their enthusiasm, not just the topic itself. People naturally enjoy conversations where they feel encouraged to be themselves. And here's something fascinating. When someone associates you with positive emotional experiences, they often look forward to talking with you again. Not because you used a clever line, because your conversations felt enjoyable. That's a huge difference. Imagine this situation. You're having coffee together. She starts talking about a project she's been working on. Most people politely nod while waiting for their turn to speak. You don't. You ask questions. You listen carefully. Then you smile and say, I really like how excited you become when you talk about something you care about. It's refreshing. Notice what happened. You didn't interrupt. You didn't exaggerate. You simply reflected something real. That kind of compliment feels personal because it couldn't have been copied and pasted onto someone else. Compliment number 4. You're incredibly resilient. Life challenges everyone. Many people quietly carry responsibilities that others never notice. When someone has overcome setbacks with grace, recognizing that strength can be deeply meaningful. But be careful. Don't assume struggles you don't know about. Instead, base the compliment on something she shared or something you've genuinely observed. For example, I know balancing work and family hasn't been easy. I've always admired how resilient you've been. That's very different from making assumptions. Respect always comes first. Now let's challenge another common belief. Many men think mystery creates attraction because saying less is always better. Not exactly. Mystery isn't silence. Mystery is emotional depth. People become curious about those who reveal themselves gradually while remaining authentic. The same applies to compliments. You don't need 10 compliments in one evening. One sincere compliment delivered at the right moment often carries far more emotional impact than 10 rushed ones. Less, but better. Compliment number 5. I respect how confident you stay without needing attention. This compliment stands out because it recognizes quiet confidence. Confidence doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's calm. Sometimes it's kindness. Sometimes it's simply being comfortable without trying to impress anyone. Acknowledging that sends a subtle message. You value substance over performance, and people tend to appreciate being recognized for qualities they've intentionally developed. There's another psychological principle worth understanding. It's called emotional consistency. When your actions consistently match your words, trust grows. If you compliment someone's kindness but constantly interrupt them, your words lose credibility. If you admire honesty but play games, the compliment becomes meaningless. Authenticity isn't just what you say, it's whether your behavior supports your message. People notice the difference, even when they can't explain it. And that's why the final 3 compliments aren't simply about choosing better words. They're about becoming the kind of person whose compliments naturally feel believable. Because believable compliments create genuine emotional connection. The rest become background noise. Now that you understand why meaningful compliments create stronger emotional connections than generic flattery, let's talk about how to actually use them. This isn't about memorizing lines. It's about developing a habit that changes the way women experience conversations with you. Every compliment in this section has 3 parts: the action, the psychology behind why it works, the mistake that ruins it. If you understand all 3, you'll stop sounding like every other man she meets. Compliment number 6. I appreciate how genuine you are. This is one of the most powerful compliments you can give because authenticity is increasingly rare. Many people feel pressure to impress others, hide their insecurities, or constantly present a perfect image. When someone feels accepted for simply being themselves, they often relax. That's what you're recognizing, not perfection. Authenticity. Why it matters psychologically. People naturally feel closer to those who make them feel accepted instead of judged. When your compliment highlights sincerity rather than appearance, you're reinforcing a quality that supports trust. Trust is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. Without trust, attraction rarely lasts. Here's how to use it. Imagine she shares an opinion that isn't popular. Instead of arguing immediately or trying to impress her with your own viewpoint, you listen. Then you say, I really appreciate that you're comfortable being yourself. That's refreshing. Simple, natural, specific. The mistake: never exaggerate. If you've only known someone for 15 minutes, saying, you're the most genuine woman I've ever met, doesn't sound romantic. It sounds unbelievable. Authenticity cannot be rushed. Compliment number 7. You have a calming presence. Think about the people you genuinely enjoy being around. Many aren't the loudest. They're simply peaceful. Their presence makes conversations easier. Stress feels lighter. Time feels slower. When you notice that quality, you're complimenting something far deeper than appearance. The psychology emotions are contagious. Psychologists call this emotional contagion. People naturally absorb the emotional tone of those around them. Someone who consistently creates comfort often becomes memorable because others associate them with positive emotional experiences. That's powerful. Here's what you do. Wait until you've genuinely experienced that feeling. After spending time together, you might say, I've noticed something. When I'm around you, conversations feel relaxed. You have a calming presence. Notice how personal that feels. It isn't rehearsed. It's based on your actual experience. The mistake: don't force emotional intensity too early. Saying, I feel completely safe with you, on a first date may feel overwhelming. Let emotional depth grow naturally. Healthy attraction develops through shared experiences, not emotional shortcuts. Compliment number 8. I admire the way you treat people. This might be the most important compliment of them all. Why? Because character lasts longer than appearance. Beauty changes, fashion changes, circumstances change. Character is what remains. Watch how someone treats waiters, friends, family, strangers. Do they show respect when nobody expects them to? If they do, acknowledge it. You could simply say, I noticed how kindly you spoke to everyone today. I really admire that. That compliment feels earned, because it is. The psychology: human beings want to believe they're valued for who they are, not just how they look. When you recognize consistent behavior instead of temporary appearance, you're communicating genuine respect. Respect creates emotional safety. Emotional safety encourages openness. Openness strengthens connection. That's how meaningful relationships grow. Timing matters more than words. Now here's something many men overlook. The timing of your compliment often matters more than the compliment itself. Imagine interrupting someone in the middle of an exciting story just to tell them they're attractive. You've shifted attention away from what mattered to them. Instead, listen first. Observe. Respond naturally. A compliment should feel like the conclusion of careful attention, not the beginning of a performance. That's what separates emotionally intelligent communication from scripted conversation. Match your words with your behavior. This is where everything comes together. You cannot compliment kindness while behaving rudely. You cannot admire honesty while pretending to be someone you're not. You cannot praise confidence while constantly seeking reassurance. People trust consistency. If your behavior matches your words, your compliments feel authentic. If they don't, even the perfect sentence loses its impact. Remember this: women don't just hear compliments, they evaluate whether your actions support them, and that evaluation happens quietly, often without a single word being spoken. Stop chasing the perfect response. One of the biggest mistakes men make is expecting every compliment to produce an immediate reaction. She smiles. He expects more. She says, "Thank you." He assumes it didn't work. That's the wrong mindset. A meaningful compliment isn't designed to produce instant attraction. It's designed to create a positive emotional memory. Sometimes that memory grows over days, sometimes weeks. Sometimes it simply contributes to a stronger connection over time. Relationships aren't built in one conversation. They're built through repeated moments of authenticity. Become more observant. Here's a challenge. For the next week, stop looking for something to say. Start looking for something real to notice. Observe how she solves problems. Observe what makes her laugh. Observe how she handles disappointment. Observe how she treats people when there's nothing to gain. Those observations become authentic compliments because they're based on reality, and reality always sounds more convincing than rehearsed lines. Remember this one principle. If your compliment could be copied and pasted onto every woman you meet, it probably isn't personal enough. But if your compliment only makes sense because you genuinely noticed something unique, that's where emotional connection begins. Not because you've mastered attraction, because you've mastered attention. And attention, when it's respectful, sincere, and consistent, is one of the rarest gifts you can offer another person. Because in the end, people rarely remember every conversation. They remember how those conversations made them feel, and that's exactly where genuine compliments have their greatest impact. Here's something most men don't hear often enough. You don't need to become someone else to build meaningful attraction. You need to become more intentional about how you see people. The strongest connections rarely begin with perfect words. They begin with genuine curiosity. Think about the conversations you've remembered most throughout your life. Were they memorable because someone delivered a flawless compliment? Probably not. They stayed with you because someone made you feel heard, respected, or understood. That's the opportunity you have every time you speak with someone. Not to impress, to connect. And there's another lesson hiding beneath all of this. Many men become anxious because they believe every interaction has to lead somewhere immediately. A phone number, a date, a relationship. When those expectations become your focus, pressure enters the conversation. Pressure changes your tone. Pressure changes your body language. Pressure changes your listening. Suddenly, you're no longer discovering who she is. You're trying to achieve an outcome. Ironically, people often sense that difference. Instead of feeling appreciated, they feel evaluated. Instead of feeling comfortable, they feel responsible for your expectations. Real confidence doesn't work that way. Real confidence says, "I'm going to enjoy this conversation, be respectful, and let genuine compatibility reveal itself." That mindset changes everything. Because when you're no longer desperate for validation, you're free to be present. Presence is attractive. Patience is attractive. Emotional stability is attractive. Not because they guarantee someone will fall for you, but because they create the conditions where authentic relationships can grow. Remember the 8 compliments you've learned today. None of them depended on appearance alone. None required manipulation. None promised guaranteed attraction. Instead, they all shared one quality. They recognized something meaningful: thoughtfulness, kindness, resilience, passion, authenticity, calmness, character, quiet confidence. Those are qualities that deserve appreciation because they're part of who someone is, not just how they look. And here's the surprising part. Practicing this doesn't only change your conversations, it changes you. You become more observant, more patient, more emotionally intelligent. You stop entering conversations wondering, "What can I say to make her like me?" And you begin asking, What can I genuinely appreciate about this person? That's a healthier question. It's also a more attractive one, because emotionally mature people aren't constantly trying to prove their value. They express it through how they treat others. If someone doesn't return your interest, respect that. Not every connection is meant to become a relationship. Mutual attraction matters. Compatibility matters. Timing matters. The right response isn't to force a connection. It's to appreciate the interaction, learn from it, and move forward with confidence. That mindset protects your self-respect. It also protects hers. The goal has never been to collect compliments that work. The goal is to become someone whose appreciation feels sincere because it comes from careful observation and emotional maturity. When you do that, people notice. Not because you're louder, not because you're more charming, because you're more present. And in a world where everyone wants to be noticed, the rare person who truly notices others becomes unforgettable. So the next time you're talking with a woman, slow down. Listen more than you speak. Observe more than you assume. When you do compliment her, let it come from something you've genuinely seen, not something you hoped would impress her. That's the difference between words that disappear and words that become part of a lasting memory. If today's conversation gave you a new perspective, subscribe for more videos on relationship psychology, emotional intelligence, and building stronger connections through confidence and authenticity. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 8 compliments do you think is the most meaningful, and has someone ever given you a compliment that stayed with you for years? Remember this: the most powerful compliment isn't the one that gets the biggest reaction. It's the one that makes another person feel genuinely understood.